The storage unit burned for 6 hours before the fire department contained it. Inside the smoking wreckage, investigators would find traces of blood, the melted remains of computer servers, and a single man's footprint burned into the concrete floor. Proof that someone had been standing there when the accelerant ignited. But by then, Leo Miller was already 3,000 miles away, holding a micro SD card with backup files and a video call from a sister who was supposed to be dead. 13 hours earlier, on a Saturday morning that felt like any other, Leo found the box. His right hand, coated in gray dust, dragged a heavy cardboard box from beneath a stack of moth-eaten wool blankets. The box lid was sealed with yellowed masking tape that had turned brittle and cracked with age. Leo knelt in the darkness of the attic, dust motes dancing in the single beam of light that cut through the eaves. His forehead beaded with sweat despite the cold. He used his silver pocket knife to slice through the tape. The sound was sharp, cutting through the silence. He peeled back the flaps and stopped breathing. A dozen MiniDV tapes lay inside, each one labeled with a name in black Sharpie. Mom, Dad, Uncle Elias. The name Uncle Elias was underlined twice. His hands began to shake as he picked up the old Sony Handycam wedged at the bottom of the box. He slid a small battery into the back and pushed the power switch. A green LED light flickered to life. The battery bar showed 10% remaining. Leo inserted the tape labeled Mom. The screen flickers with static before showing his mother, Elena, sitting in a kitchen chair he recognized from childhood. Tears streaked her face. She was looking directly at the camera, at whoever was filming her. I never told him. Elena's voice came through the tinny speakers, broken and shattered. I let him believe it was his fault? Leo pulled a handwritten journal from the side of the box. The first page was titled The Silence Project, in his sister's meticulous handwriting. Underneath was a list of names with notations beside each one. Interviewed or pending. At the bottom of the list, his own name. Elio, marked as pending, never. His sister Sarah had been filming the family. 12 hours earlier, Leo found his father in the garage. Arthur was leaning over the engine of a rusted 1968 Mustang, a wrench in his grease-stained hand. The metal was slick with oil, and his white undershirt bore the stains of a man who had been working since dawn. He didn't look up when Leo walked in, holding the Handycam up like a weapon. Why is Mom crying on this tape, Dad? Why did Sarah film this? Leo's voice sounded hollow, even to himself. Arthur dropped the wrench. It hit the concrete with a loud ring that echoed through the garage. He lunged at Leo, reaching for the camera with both hands, his face turning a deep shade of crimson. Give me that goddamn thing. It's none of your business. Arthur roared, his voice carrying a rage that Leo had never heard from him before. Leo ducked under Arthur's swinging arm. Arthur grabbed Leo's hoodie, yanking him back hard. They stumbled into a shelf of paint cans. A blue can fell, splashing across the floor in a thick puddle. Leo elbowed Arthur in the stomach, driving his elbow upward with everything he had. Arthur staggers back, clutching his gut. He tripped over the Mustang's bumper and fell onto the paint-slicked floor, his hand covered in blue paint, slipping uselessly as he tried to stand. Leo stood over him, panting, the camera tucked safely under his arm. What are you so afraid of? Leo asked, his voice cold and steady. Arthur looked up, his anger replaced by a hollow, vacant stare. He pointed a blue-stained finger at the camera, then at Leo's face. She wasn't just filming us, Leo. She was filming the people we've been hiding from. That evening, Leo sat on his bed with the camera bag in his lap. The rain was tapping against his window in a steady rhythm. He noticed a bulge in the bottom padding of the bag, something that didn't belong. He ripped the Velcro lining away and found a slim black leather wallet. Inside was a driver's license. The photo was Sarah, but the name read Sienna Valeska. The address was 400 miles away, in a city Sarah had claimed she'd never visited. The license didn't expire until 2026, suggesting it had been recently made. Who the hell is Sienna? Leo hissed the words into the dark of his room. He pulled out a folded slip of paper from behind the ID. It was a receipt for a storage unit in that distant city, dated 2 days before Sarah's accident. Unit 402, Apex Storage. The plastic key tag had Sienna written on it in Sarah's hand. Leo's laptop screen was open. He typed Sienna Valeska into a search engine. The results were blank, but he found a news article about a missing woman matching Sarah's description from 5 years ago, before she had supposedly returned home. The grainy photo showed a girl with Sarah's exact eyes, standing between a wealthy couple in front of a mansion. The headline read, "Heiress missing, abandoned at the border." A notification popped up on his laptop screen. It was an email from an unknown sender. Subject, "The silence is broken." Body, "We know you have the tapes, Leo. Stay in the attic." The timestamp was 10:14 p.m. Leo's door was locked, but the sound of breaking glass came from downstairs. He heard it clearly. The front door, the distinctive crunch of tempered glass hitting tile. He grabbed the heavy glass paperweight from his desk and crept into the hallway. His heart was hammering against his ribs. A dark figure in a gray tactical hoodie was standing by the attic stairs. The figure was motionless, as if listening for something. Then it turned, and Leo saw the dark visor of a ski mask covering everything but the outline of a jaw. The intruder turned and swung a heavy mag light at Leo's head. Leo ducked, and the light hit the drywall with a muffled thud that threw up a cloud of white plaster dust. Leo lunged forward, slamming the paperweight onto the intruder's shoulder. The impact made a sound like a bell ringing. They tumbled into the kitchen. The intruder grabbed Leo's throat with one gloved hand, pushing him back against the counter. Leo's vision began to blur at the edges. His hand swept across the marble, finding a cast-iron skillet. He gripped it with both hands and swung with everything left in his body. The skillet connected with a sound like a gong, a deep, resonant ring that made the intruder's grip loosen. The figure fell sideways, crashing through the glass-topped kitchen table. Shards exploded everywhere, scattering like diamonds under the kitchen light. The intruder rolled through the glass and scrambled toward the broken front door. Leo tried to follow, but stepped on a large shard. Pain shot through his foot. He fell to his knees as the intruder disappeared into a waiting black SUV. Tires screeched against the driveway. The engine roared to life, and the vehicle vanished into the night. "Who are you?" Leo screamed. But there was no answer, except the sound of blood dripping onto the kitchen tile. The next morning, Elena was sitting on her floral sofa, her hands twisted in a lace handkerchief. Leo stood over her, his foot bandaged and wrapped. He held the Sienna Valeska ID in front of her face. "Tell me everything. Start with why Sarah has a driver's license for a woman who doesn't exist." Leo's voice was low and dangerous in a way she had never heard before. Elena looked at the ID and began to sob. She reached for a photo of Sarah on the mantelpiece, a silver-framed portrait of Sarah at age 10, smiling at the camera. She turned it over and popped the back off with shaking fingers. The metal clips snapped as she fumbled with them. "We weren't hiding from strangers, Leo. We were hiding from her real family." She pulled out an old newspaper clipping hidden behind the photo. It showed a wealthy couple standing in front of a mansion. The woman was elegant and distant. The man wore a Valeska suit. Between them was a young girl with Sarah's exact eyes. Elena grabbed Leo's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. She stared directly into his eyes, her expression frantic and desperate. The Valescas are recruiters for a syndicate. Sarah wasn't a victim, she was their project. She came back to us because she was filming their secrets to destroy them. The doorbell rang once, sharp and loud. Elena's face went white. She pushed Leo toward the back door, her entire body rigid with fear. Go. Now. Take the tapes to the storage unit. Don't look back. Leo drove his beat-up silver sedan down the two-lane highway. The woods pressed in on both sides of the road, and heavy fog was rolling in, obscuring everything more than 50 feet ahead. He looked in the rearview mirror. The black SUV was 2 car lengths behind him, closing the gap. It had no license plate. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The sedan's engine whined in protest, but he held steady at 80 miles per hour. The fog was so thick now that he could barely see the road markings. The SUV rammed into his rear bumper. His head snapped back against the headrest with a crack. The sedan fishtailed toward the ditch. Leo counter-steered, his tires screeching as they smoked against the pavement. Sparks flew from the impact. Leo grabbed a handful of MiniDV tapes from the passenger seat. He rolled down the window and held one out, mimicking the action of throwing it into the woods. The SUV braked hard, swerving to avoid losing the evidence. "You want 'em? Come get 'em!" Leo shouted into the wind. He slammed on his own brakes and pulled a hard U-turn across the grass median. The sedan lurched as it crossed onto the soft shoulder on the other side. Leo pressed the accelerator and sped off in the opposite direction. He watched the SUV struggling in the mirror, trying to turn around on the narrow road, getting stuck in the mud. Leo reached into the glove box and pulled out the storage unit key. He looked at it, then at the remaining tapes on the passenger seat. His hands were shaking as he drove. Late at night, Leo slid up the corrugated metal door of Unit 402. Inside wasn't furniture, but a professional-grade office. 3 monitors cast a blue glow in the darkness. High-end servers hummed quietly. The walls were covered in corkboards with photographs and red string connecting face to face in a web of conspiracy. Leo looked at the corkboard. In the center was a photo of Uncle Elias shaking hands with a man in a Valeska suit. Underneath was a document titled Laundering Schedule. Elias's face was circled in red ink. Not Elias, anyone but him. Leo whispered the words into the darkness. He clicked a file on the main monitor labeled Regret Final Cut. A video played. It was Sarah, looking directly into the camera. She wasn't crying. She was smiling, holding a leather ledger against her chest. "Regret is a weapon, Leo." Sarah's voice came through the speakers, chillingly calm. "I used it on Mom. I used it on Dad. And now, Uncle Elias is going to pay for the rest of his life." The door to the unit was kicked shut from the outside. The sound was like a gunshot. Uncle Elias stood in front of Leo, holding a silenced 9mm pistol pointed at Leo's chest. He wore a tailored Navy suit that made him look like a stranger. Elegant and dangerous, in a way Leo had never noticed before. His polished black shoes were perfectly pressed. "She was a brilliant director, Leo," Elias said, his voice smooth and predatory. "But she didn't know when to yell cut." Elias motioned with the gun for Leo to back away from the computer. Leo saw a small gasoline canister in the corner of the unit. His mind put the pieces together in an instant. Elias was here to burn it all. He was here to burn it all, including Leo. The rec light on the unit security camera was blinking red. Leo threw the heavy handycam at Elias's head. Elias dodged, and the camera smashed against the wall with a crunch of breaking plastic. Leo used the distraction to tackle Elias, driving his shoulder into the older man's solar plexus. The gun skittered across the floor toward the back of the unit. Elias recovered quickly, delivering a sharp knee to Leo's ribs. Leo collapses, gasping for air. Elias grabbed a heavy computer monitor by the stand and raised it over his head to crush Leo's skull. The screen was still glowing with Sarah's frozen face. "I loved that girl like my own," Uncle Elias screamed. "But she was going to send us all to prison." Leo rolled just as the monitor smashed into the floor where his head had been. The screen exploded into 1,000 fragments. Leo grabbed a pair of heavy-duty cable cutters from the workbench and swung them, catching Elias across the shin. The metal hit bone with a wet sound, and Elias's trouser leg tore open. Elias fell, screaming. He tried to reach for the 9mm near the back wall. Leo scrambled over the servers, knocking them down to create a barricade. Elias fired one shot. The bullet sparked off a server rack with a deafening ring in the small enclosed space. Smoke rose from the impact. Leo found the gasoline canister. He unscrewed the cap and splashed it over the corkboard, over the backup drives, over everything. The smell of gasoline filled the air, thick and chemical. He fumbled in his pocket for his silver lighter. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip it. He stood at the edge of the unit, the lighter flame flickering in the darkness. "You killed your own niece for money. Then watch it burn," Leo said. His voice was flat, dead, empty of everything except the absolute certainty of what he was about to do. He flicked the lighter. The flame caught the edge of the gasoline-soaked papers. Fire raced across the corkboard, consuming the photos, the evidence, the entire architecture of the conspiracy. The servers melted. The monitors cracked and popped. The heat drove Leo back toward the door. He stumbled out into the night and ran. The alley behind the storage facility was dark and growing darker. Leo was slumped against a brick wall, covered in soot and blood. Smoke billowed from the storage unit's vents above him. His clothes were torn, and blood from his rib injury was soaking through his shirt. He was completely exhausted, staring at nothing while the orange glow of the fire reflected in puddles all around him. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, then louder still. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a single MiniDV tape he had grabbed before the fire. The label read, "For Leo, read first." His name was written in Sarah's handwriting. "Why now? Why did you leave me this?" Leo sobbed, the words coming out as whispers. He tried to stand, but his leg gave out. He crawled toward a nearby dumpster to hide from a passing police car. The blue and red lights flashed against the brick wall as the sirens screamed past. Leo pressed himself against the dumpster, a fugitive now with no proof of anything that had happened. He opened the tape case. Inside was a small micro SD card taped to the plastic. Sarah's backup. His phone screen was cracked, but it still worked. His thumb hovered over the power button. He had a way out, but he was terrified of what was on the card. Leo looked at his reflection in a dark puddle. He didn't recognize himself. She was wearing the same silver necklace she had worn at her funeral. She looked healthier than he had ever seen her, her skin tan and glowing. "Hi, little brother. Thanks for doing the heavy lifting. I needed a witness for Elias's attempted murder so the Valeskas would cut him loose." Sarah's voice was cheerful, almost chirping through the tiny speakers. At the bottom of the screen, a new folder appeared. "Your New Life." Leo opened it. Inside was a passport in his name, a plane ticket to Zurich, and a bank account login with a balance of $2,000. Leo stared at the screen, watching Sarah smile at him through thousands of miles of fiber optic cable. He clicked Send All in the email client. Every major news outlet, the FBI, the SEC, the IRS, The files began uploading. The silence wasn't just broken. It was shattered into 1,000 pieces that would never fit back together. The email status changed to delivered. Leo walked through the airport terminal the next morning with his head down. He wore a new black jacket he had bought with cash. The only thing he carried was the backup micro SD card in a small plastic case. His new passport was tucked inside his jacket pocket. The departures board showed Zurich, boarding. Uncle Elias appeared from behind a pillar with his arm in a sling. His face was bruised. He had no gun here. The airport security was too tight for that. He grabbed Leo's shoulder, his hand shaking with rage. "You think you can just leave? After what you did?" Elias hissed the words through gritted teeth. Leo pointed to the wall of televisions in the departure lounge. Every screen was flashing Elias's face. The Valeska logo. The headline, "Syndicate Money Laundering Ring Revealed." The news ticker scrolled beneath, "Uncle of lead FBI witness wanted for questioning." Gasps erupted from other travelers as they recognized Elias standing there, in flesh, in public, on the screens around him. "I didn't do it, Elias. Sarah did. I'm just the one who delivered the message." Leo's voice was calm, almost peaceful. 2 airport security officers and a man in a plain suit approached Elias. They put him in handcuffs. The metal clicked shut around his wrists. Elias looked at Leo, his mouth open as if to speak, but he contained only silence. Leo turned his back on him. He handed his boarding pass to the gate agent. The woman smiled and scanned it. Leo looked at his phone one last time. There was a message from Sienna. It said, "See you in the sun." The plane was waiting on the tarmac, bathed in morning light. Leo walked across white sand toward a woman sitting in a recliner chair. It was Sarah. She handed him a cold beer. The bottle was beaded with condensation. On the table between them was a photo of the Miller family. The sun was sinking into the ocean, turning the sky orange and crimson. "So, are you going to tell me who they really were?" Leo asked, his voice quiet and curious. Sarah picked up the family photo. She tapped the faces of Mom and Dad. Then she pointed to a stack of resumes in a folder titled "Casting, the Millers." "The Valeskas needed to believe I had a life to come back to. So I built one. The regrets were theirs, Leo, not ours." Sarah's voice was confident, the tone of someone who had orchestrated everything perfectly. She flipped through the resumes. Elena's real name was Linda St. James, an actress from New York. She had appeared in 3 off-Broadway productions and a Netflix series. Arthur was Thomas Brennan, a character actor from Los Angeles who had done bit parts in dozens of films. Leo looked at the resume for the role of the brother. It was his own face on the profile. The name listed was lead operative. The salary listed was $500,000. "I was that good, huh?" Leo said, and a smile formed on his face. Sarah clinked her bottle against his. They stood together and walked toward the fire pit that was burning on the beach. She tossed the family photo into the flames. The edges began to curl and turn black. The family's faces disappeared into the light. "Best performance of your life. Now, let's go spend our payment." Sarah's voice had a note of genuine affection in it. They both walked toward a sleek, white villa on the hill. The sun was disappearing below the horizon. The sand beneath their feet was still warm from the day's heat. As they climbed the stairs to the villa, Leo looked back. On the sand where they had been sitting, a single Polaroid lay on the ground. He picked it up. The photo showed 2 kids at a playground years ago. Sarah was standing between Leo and a boy who was trying to push Leo over. Sarah had her arms outstretched, protecting him, her face fierce and determined, the only real thing in the story. Leo held the photo in his hand as they entered the villa. The door closed behind them. Inside, the rooms were cool and filled with light. Sarah poured 2 glasses of wine. They sat on the terrace and watched the darkness fall over the ocean.